He's not a bat, he's a man who fights crime. And we're gonna watch him fight for a minute at a time. With John and Niall and a guest who doesn't rhyme. It's Bat Minute!
Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Bat Minute of the Phantasm. This is the podcast where we're always feeling the electricity every night. When it's talking about Batman Mask of the Phantasm, that is. I am one of the hosts, Niall McGowan.
Well, I'm your other host, John Parker, here to bring you that electricity only 3 days a week. You know, I can't do it every night. Cut me some slack. Jesus Christ.
You're doing there's pills you can take, John, that'll keep you going, you know.
I've got other things going on, you know.
Those
I've got
ones
a life
they sell
to
at
live.
the gas station?
You know, everyone, it happens to everyone. Pele had he had issues with it too, so it's...
I still think of those adverts when I think of him, and I'm not sure that's what he would want.
I think that's the thing, yeah, because when he died, that was instantly in my head, was Pele and those adverts. I was like, he wasn't a football legend in my lifetime. Like, he was a legend, but I never saw him play or anything.
It was prior to you.
Yeah. So to me, my lifetime, all I ever saw of him was those adverts. So.
I mean, same thing with O.J. Simpson. He was in the car rental commercials. I didn't know he was a football star before he became a murderer.
Police say he advertised, what was that car he was driving?
The Bronco.
Yeah. No, he was like for Hertz rental. It doesn't matter. We're getting off track.
You can get away from the police so fast in these things.
you brought up O.J. Simpson before they even introduced us.
I know.
Well, of course, it is noted O.J. enthusiasts and TMNTers. It is Adam and Rachel.
Hello.
Hey.
Nothing wrong with being an OJ enthusiast as long as it's in investigating.
Yeah. It was on during our formative years, that whole trial. It's like burned into my memory.
Yeah.
I think we brought it up this season already, but that's one of the big things. Mark Hamill apparently was obsessed with the O.J. Simpson case.
We all were.
Yeah, but he was in the courtroom for it. Like he used his celebrity sway to get into like, he was there watching it live and stuff. So
I came very close to purchasing. I saw at a flea market recently a big box of VHS tapes that was the entire OJ trial taped off live TV.
Holy moly. Those kind of things are so good, though, because then you get to relive all the old commercials and stuff that you don't get anymore.
Yeah.
I remember in university, one of my lecturers lending me like an old film I couldn't get a copy of. And I was so amazed. There was like an advert for Holston Pills, which is, I don't know if that's in America, but it's a beer over here. And it was Jeff Goldblum doing it. Like 90s
Weird.
Jeff Goldblum. I was like, what? He was the Holston Pills guy back when like Jurassic Park was out and stuff. This is incredible to me.
Yeah, commercials are such a disposable media that like those things are such a treat.
Yeah. I don't know, like now, because you kind of grow to hate them when you have to watch them. But I think now you could have YouTube channels that are just old commercials, and people would just put them on.
I'm sure
in the background.
there are.
Yeah, totally. It has to be like hours and hours of just commercials from, specifically like 1995 or something. Like, when I was 8 and I was watching TV, and I hated them then. But now
I had this tape. It was a special that aired on one of the networks. And it was the 20th anniversary of Sesame Street. So I am dating myself there a little bit, but I don't remember much of the actual show, but I remember the commercials because my dad taped it off the TV and didn't pause when the commercials were on. So like, all of those commercials mean so much to me.
Those things, it's still in here, because I have the old copy of Gremlins 2 I used to have was taped off the news, and I always remember where the news at 10 started.
Yeah.
Because I'd have to take a break for 45 minutes in the movie, which is unconscionable now. But
to bring this back to the subject matter, I have a big Rubbermaid container full of old bootleg tapes that I taped off of TV, and there's volumes and volumes of just hours of Batman episodes from Kids WB, and the commercials on those are hysterical.
Yeah, a lot of Pokemon and Lunchables.
There's one where
Gushers.
Batman comes across Jigglypuff or something. I think Alex Thompson brought up. Yeah. Although that's a weird thing. Again, I did mean to make this up last minute. It was one of my Mark Hamill tidbits that I didn't get bringing up, is that he was, he doesn't do it anymore because I guess he can't do it anymore. He was a demented level fan of David Letterman from the very beginning. So when Late Night with David Letterman began, like would have been the early 80s or whatever, Mark Hamill was like, he was on the show quite a bit, but like he apparently taped every single episode. And so at his house is like, and he carts them around with him. He has VHS boxes full, just crammed full, sky high of old episodes of Letterman. So much so that he started like, apparently when he was on Return of the Jedi, he was like he brought like a little journal to like mark down who was on that night, and he got really obsessed with just Letterman. He was just so fascinated by it, so much so that's
got to be some facet of like ADHD or autism or something.
So he was the one too. Like you hear him talk about like his childhood and stuff. Like again, I think we mentioned it earlier in the season, but like he used to be really fascinated with the voices in cartoons and stuff, and so he would go to the library and like go through the microfiche machine, reading every single article he could to find out who was doing voices. Because
how then, Batman of him, using microfiche.
But apparently it's so much so that Chris Elliott, the actor Chris Elliott, was in Schitt's Creek and Groundhog Day and stuff like that. Tim Burton's Cabin Boy, which is a movie that Tim Burton produced. I don't think it had anything to do with it, but it's always credited as Tim Burton's Cabin Boy.
I know that movie.
Yeah. I think it's a Cabin Boy minute. I remember hearing...
What?
There was bandied about on Twitter. I remember I think they might have done it to completion. They might have actually... They just did it and went. But apparently he was aware of all this, and so he was a writer on David Letterman. And when they were trying to put together... trying to find like who was the 1,000th, viewer to write in with this or something... He went to Mark Hamill, going like, well, and apparently Mark Hamill went out, like, got out all the tapes and went through everything for him. And so much since that afterwards, he became like the David Letterman archivist. So every time they needed anything, they would go to Mark Hamill because they knew he would have it on tape and stuff. And it's like...
That's so cool. Yeah. I want to be that for something.
Specifically, though, we are here to talk about minute 60 of Batman Mask of the Phantasm today, which opens with another... We'll officially put a little thing to change the term flashback into a dilly-up. I think that should be the new official.
I love it. Let's
I like
motion
that a lot.
the government to do this.
Get the petition signed. We'll get it out there.
Dear government.
World government.
Someone should start just work it into screenplays, and then we dilly up into another scene.
Dilly up, yeah.
Yeah.
And then with because the thing is, when people go giddy up to kind of get up and go, this is like when you're looking backwards, so you're getting up to go backwards, or you're dilly up. But yeah, that ends a minute later with some robotic romancing. So we have here like Andrea Beaumont doing a little sort of like an Arya Stark kind of thing here, going through her list of people that she's got to go get. And so I wonder if she's sitting there like all the Game of Thrones fans out there, if she was sitting with Arthur Reeves just going like Sal Valestra, Buzz Bronski, the Joker, I guess. Whoever he was.
It's her nightly routine.
Yeah.
Just going through the list like Arya did.
Yeah, totally. And so we do, we dilly up back to... The thing is, like, the Beaumonts, like, it's a really nice looking house. It's like, this guy wasn't even really trying to hide, was he? Like,
No. Well, that's the thing. He owes a lot of money, and I know it's not ideal, but could he have just sold the house?
Well, the thing is, to be fair, Andrea does say in the minute, but he paid you, so... I don't know if he was... that's
true. No, but I mean before the problem compounded to the point where they're like, well, we're just going to kill him.
Yeah. I don't think we ever knew how much he owed. It could have been the classic Krusty thing of like, it was $48 or whatever.
Yeah.
But this is, I guess, the nice house out by, the Mediterranean coast where they end up landing. And Andrea approaching with the classic film trope of the paper bag with the baguettes sticking out the top, which is...
It's 2 baguettes, 2 potatoes, what looks like a cabbage.
I think that's an acorn squash.
Or lettuce.
Yeah, one of my questions was, I thought it was like it looks like a really unripe butternut squash.
Yeah.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, but you do get some of that colour, I think. Not butternut squashes, but different type of squash.
Yeah, it's the greatest food mystery since Alfred's tray of food for Dick Grayson and Batman Forever. Trying to decipher what the hell that was.
And then there's like a box of something.
There's a box and several apples.
Yeah. I think I was, again, slightly outraged. Like, 2 potatoes, Andrea? 2?
Yeah.
Either
What are you going to do with 2 potatoes?
1 potato, 2 potato.
I mean, you could do 2 baked potatoes, but that, I mean, usually buy several.
Maybe she doesn't eat a lot, so yeah, she's going to make baked potatoes. But that's all she's going to do.
Carl Beaumont's a big,
I mean, but-
strapping guy, though. He looks like he, to maintain that girth, you gotta...
Well, what do you think the 2 baguettes are for?
Oh,
Yeah.
true, yeah. She's a... But yeah, I actually did look up, I was trying to find the origin of the 2. Like, there must be could we might have trace back earlier in the season, like what was the first film to do the old throwing the drink in the face routine. And I did find there's an article I'll put in the listener's cave from, it was a WordPress article called "In Praise of the Cinematic Baguette." And it's just all about like this trope of like, cinematic shorthand for groceries, I guess, is like no one buys baguettes this big, and then like it's exposed to air. That's gonna go rock hard within like within an hour.
I saw this video on Instagram, and it was in French, but I don't think the person speaking was a native French speaker. So he said, every time I go to the bakery, I never know if it's un baguette, une baguette, la baguette, le baguette, whatever.
Yeah.
So he orders 2. Deux baguettes.
Oh, because it's easier.
It's easier to say deux baguettes than remembering whatever the article is. I don't
We went down this rabbit hole with Secret of the Ooze, too. There's a scene where April's bringing home groceries, and she had my favorite... aside from the baguette, which is the stalk of celery sticking up with the greens hanging out the top of the bag. That's
because it's shorthand for groceries. Like everyone pretty much understands what a baguette looks like, and the celery, and like a box of cereal or whatever.
You need something sticking out the top.
Yeah. I love that you brought that up though, Adam, because that article links to the TV tropes page, and one of them cited is Secret of the Ooze.
Oh, perfect.
But like, so usually you just go through like, all the films they've listed, try to find which is the earliest one, and it can't be. They can't, because I've only really got like a handful of them, and the earliest one is The Lost Weekend, which people haven't seen. It's a depressing as all hell movie. It's thing with Billy Wilder movie with Ray Milland. It's about this like an alcoholic and stuff, and it's pretty hard hitting for the time. It's hard hitting even for today, but like that's like 1960. Oh no, 1945. So I guess that's like, but it feels like no, it's got to be earlier than that. Like the old baguette sticking out of the paper bag routines. Like that must have been like way could have been, but 1945 have been the origin of where that came from. Or I just feel like I must have gone back to like silent cinema. Let me go back to vaudeville.
I would think it's got to, right?
Yeah, that feels like one of those tropes that's older than cinema.
Yeah. Although here's a question: does anybody buy baguettes, or do you just buy sliced bread?
I buy baguettes. I don't buy bread.
Really?
Yeah.
But then
I don't eat bread.
The thing is, because I love bread, but like if I bought baguettes, it's like they just go to waste. I love bread, but I would never eat a whole baguette.
Yeah, it is a lot to eat by yourself. I've done it. I'm not proud to admit.
well, we live in the land of the hoagie, which, if you're not familiar, is a sandwich that's basically on a baguette. I mean, who are we kidding?
But
hoagie rolls,
the classic Simpsons of Homer with the 15-foot hoagie.
Right?
Yeah.
One of my favorite jokes ever.
Hoagie rolls are usually like somewhere in the foot-long category.
Yeah, about 12 inches.
Yeah, but no, I don't think I've ever bought. So, if I have, it was for a bit. I'll say that.
Well, I'm going to clarify
remember,
as well. Like, technically, like at least over here, because we're next to France, a baguette, it tends to be really, really, really big. Like I'm talking, like 3 feet.
Damn.
Yeah, ours aren't that long.
The ones I buy now, I can say I don't buy a baguette because I live alone. I buy a baton.
Oh, yeah.
A baton is like a small one.
That's probably more akin to a hoagie roll then.
Yes, it's around that kind of size that you were saying, yeah.
Yeah.
And I had to clarify there because my French speaking friend Lyle would slap me if I.
I'm gonna try that out in the next Philly deli I'm in and see what kind of looks I get.
Yeah, one baton, please. I remember one time I had an exceptionally bad day at work, and I swung by Target, and I got. It probably wasn't a baguette. I think it was labeled French bread, which is such an American thing to call it.
Oh, hey, we do
Got
that
one of
as
those.
well. Don't worry.
Probably about the length of my arm. A wheel of brie,
Oh, yes.
a bag of grapes, and then I went to the liquor store and bought a bottle of wine. I'm like, I'm having dinner like a French lady tonight.
That sounds like the best dinner
I
ever.
can actually hear a concertina in the background.
Yeah. But the stupid thing is, because Pennsylvania, this was before Pennsylvania let you buy wine and liquor in the grocery store. I had to go to another store.
Oh, I've heard about
So,
this in a lot of America. That's so
now
wild
now
to
you
us.
can pretty much get wine and liquor or wine and beer at the grocery store.
Yeah, all the liquor stores are run by the state.
Yeah.
It's weird.
That is so strange
But
to me.
yeah, I had to go to Target, get my food, and then go to another store and get my wine.
But even when you buy it in the grocery store, like you have to go to a different.
Yeah, it's
there's
a different-
specific checkout line for that.
Whoa, this is
Not at Wegmans though. Wegmans is different. You can pick it up and then buy it at checkout.
Here you can just buy alcohol everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you
Yeah,
should be.
I lived in New York for a while, and you can get beer at the drugstore. Like
Yeah.
beer is everywhere.
But yeah. So Andrea there coming up to I don't know, maybe there's a wheel of brie in there as well. She's really like this is her birthday, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have a time tonight. Let me tell you. And then the door quite violently opens. Just the way that handle turns. It's just so like it's as if he knew she was coming.
It's very aggressive.
And open up to reveal, as referred to in the script, the tall man, or you always want to call him Jack Napier, but then and then the show they called him Jack Napier, but then later on they made a big point of going, he's a nameless hoodlum who used the alias Jack Napier. So we still don't know who the Joker is officially.
Brilliant.
We'll tie into things, so we'll be bringing up later in the episode. Notably silent, and then sort of very callously, with his little smirk on his face, just wanders on out. I'm almost like hesitant to ask because like Andrea's approaching the house. It's a pretty quiet looking neighborhood there. There's no gunshot, so you're kind of like whatever she finds in there of Carl Beaumont. I don't think he just came in and like shot him in the head or something. I'm thinking
No, I think
No,
he's like
there was-
garroted him and stuff.
it feels like he was
Yeah.
probably
Gross.
there for like a while as well. Like it's the
Probably.
Joker. He's sick.
But the Joker's just like waiting there for her to come home.
Well, that's I don't know if he is. Maybe this is part of like he's such a cruel asshole that he's like, I want to make sure that she
Yeah.
sees me as well. I don't want to.
Possibly.
Yeah, he's like peeking out the window for her. Like, oh, there she is.
Yeah,
Like when you're waiting for takeout.
it's a very notable thing in that like he doesn't kill her. Like he could kill her, but he's chosen to like, yep, I'm gonna leave her alive. I think it feels like that's a deliberate move on his part to be like, yeah, I waited around for her to come home so she could see that it was me. And and then have that sort of to know that she's gonna have. I've chosen to leave her alive so she can continue the suffering of like, I killed her dad, and now she has to live with that instead of just killing her as well.
Plus, it's like a weird thing that the mobsters are always shown to have honor of some sort, aren't they? Like, and she didn't wrong them.
No.
So,
I think with this, I think this is more of a cruelness on his part. I don't think it's. It's very similar though to in like most Batman villains, of course, are a dark mirror of Batman himself.
What?
This is much like, and the whole thing with the BTAS, the show was that we're kind of tying things into the movie, or into like the live action, the Tim Burton movies, kind of, sort of. So they had, as we mentioned before, they were kind of forced to draw the Penguin to look a bit more like Danny DeVito. The whole Jack Napier thing is probably much more of like the studio going like, no, he's Jack Napier. That's Jack Nicholson's version. You have to do that too.
Yeah.
And this does feel like a little thing of like, this is her Wayne murders, basically. And much like in the 89 movie where Jack Napier left Bruce Wayne alive and just wandered away. This is kind of like the Joker in this continuity didn't create Batman, but he did create the Phantasm because he chose to let Andrea Beaumont live. And you might as well be doing like a little "see you around, kid," wandering away kind of thing.
Yeah. That's the one different coin flip between universes.
Although, are you guys aware of what was the exact title they gave it? Actually, I used to think it was just called The Gun. Yeah. The abandoned BTAS script called The One and Only Gun Story.
Oh.
Because this was a thing, apparently it was written by Randy Rogel, and this is it's an unmade script, and they're all like, "Oh no, it's amazing! It would have been a great, great addition." I'm really glad they didn't do it, because we talked about obviously at length back in our first season. The whole thing of Jack Napier killing the Waynes is just like stupid. Like it doesn't ruin the movie because I'm used to it, but as an idea, like I don't even like the idea of Joe Chill, like them knowing who killed Bruce Wayne, knowing who killed his parents. This is like, no, it should just be no one. The city killed his parents. The Gotham itself or crime just killed his parents. That's his. It's a faceless, nameless thing. But they had written this. Randy Rogel, one of the writers, had a script that he was banding around that would begin with mining for ore in what was apparently an ancient Indian burial ground outside of Gotham somewhere. And the Native Americans come over and they're like, "You can't do this," and the guys are like, "Get the hell out of here, assholes! We'll do what we want." You follow that ore going into like a factory, and it's melted down and it's turned into a gun. And then the gun goes out to the gun shop, and while there, some random guy comes and orders the gun, and in a very Terminator-esque move, speaking of Dick Miller, who of course is in this movie as well, the gun salesman in the Terminator, the guy then kills the guy who sold him the gun, and that guy turns out to be Jack Napier, and that gun is then later used to kill the Waynes. Jack Napier was the guy who, in the continuity of the show, this would establish that Jack Napier did in fact kill Bruce Wayne's parents. And then at the end of the episode, like Bruce gets a hold of the gun, and then he like goes and like returns it to the fires from whence it came, kind of thing. And it's a whole big thing. It gets them trying to go like it's like it was made of metal from an ancient Indian burial ground. It's cursed. It's getting a bit silly, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that I could see that not getting made.
Yeah,
apparently it was. They said it was too dark. They're like, it's just the focus on a gun being like the main character of an episode is a gun is a bit crazy.
I love it, but that is a bit like, considering that they're aiming it mostly at a younger audience. Yeah, I can see that.
I like it as a concept. Everything except the Joker being the guy who killed the parents. Like everything else is like, yeah, you make because as I mentioned, one of the pins to take out from the previous episode was Animaniacs did an episode like that where there was an episode about like a gold wrapping for a present.
Oh yeah,
and then you follow the wrapper as it gets tossed in the trash and goes out and finds other things, and it's it's kind of like sentient wrapping paper and stuff. I remember hating that episode when I was a kid because it wasn't about the Warner Brothers or Pinky and the Brain. And then as you get older, you're like, no, it's actually a really beautiful piece of animation. It's actually a very sophisticated little thing to put in there.
Kids don't appreciate beauty. That's why they're scum.
But it's but no. So this story, I'm glad it wasn't made because again, though, that gets into the whole thing of like, well, in '89 that makes sense. Because it's like, well, Jack Nicholson is visibly a man in his 50s. But the Joker in this show is like, no, he's like the same age as Batman, right? Like, he doesn't. How much older would he have had to have been then? You're telling me when Bruce Wayne was like 8 or whatever. Jack Napier, the guy he's tussling with every episode, he's like at least in his 20s probably. And so it just kind of, it just doesn't work for me. And it feels very much like them saying the studio told them it was too dark. I've also heard Bruce Timm in various things saying like, mention stupid ideas in comic books and been like, yeah, it'd be as stupid as making like the Joker, the guy who killed Batman's parents. I mean, why would you do that? So I imagine he was probably there going like, if the probably written without him knowing really, or when it came to something to cut, he was like, get rid of that. Like, yeah, that's an episode we don't need to make. But yeah, interesting enough, that could have been the continuity of. So we've had a couple of these throughout the show so far, where we had like Batman was going to be turned into a vampire in one episode that didn't end up making. They were going to have Neil Gaiman's The Sandman in an episode that didn't end up making.
Oh, that
would have been
so
great.
cool.
Yeah, and then another one. They would have had. We'll get into a couple more before the season ends. But yeah, there was going to be an episode focused around a gun that would have been the one that killed the main parents, and also it would have been Jack Napier. And I'm like, yeah, I'm happy to leave it at this, being like, he created the Phantasm, he didn't create Batman. That's just silly.
Yeah.
So, unless do you guys feel very passionately either way? Are you like really pro, like, no, Napier killing the Waynes was the greatest decision they ever made?
I've never liked it being the Joker.
Yeah.
That's always bothered me. I like the idea of having some character that he has to confront, but it being the Joker is too on the nose.
Yeah.
They did do a good in the tie-in comics. They actually did a really good issue just about Joe Chill himself. And again, I don't like the concept of Joe Chill, but they did it really well, where you find out that he is really traumatized from being the guy who killed it. Like, no one knows that he did it. He got away with it. But everywhere he goes, he sees Bruce Wayne's face, knowing that he, like, I left that little kid alive. Like, I killed his parents. I robbed him of his parents, and then I just left him. And so everywhere he goes, he keeps seeing Bruce Wayne. And at the end, he has a tussle with Batman, and he knocks him out. And then he rips off the mask, and when he sees Bruce Wayne, he keeps thinking, like, it's his delusions again. So he doesn't realize that it's like, that actually is Bruce Wayne.
So
and stuff.
good.
That's a great way out of it. Like, he's seeing his face, but he doesn't believe that that's actually real.
Yeah.
Those comics were so great, the Batman Adventures, and they brought those back recently.
Yeah, that's like, the Adventures continue, and they're doing all Court of Owls and all the kind of more modern stuff with it. Yeah,
it's good stuff.
Yeah. But so here's so we got the Joker then silently, notably, goes down the steps and.
Oh, I love that he doesn't say a word, and that we don't go away from him. We don't go inside. I think it would cheapen it to show us the body.
Yeah. And he does that classic bad guy trope of eating an apple.
Yeah.
I was gonna come back to this. I love the eating the apple trope. We talked about this a couple times on Turtles, where there's this trope of when you're eating an apple that it's like whatever you just did or are doing was easy.
Yeah.
It always kind of makes it's also kind of like a shorthand for being an asshole as well. Like,
there's a little. It's like a cockiness kind of thing, but that's such a dark thing to allude to here.
Yeah. He just did it.
He even rubs it on his jacket to like clean off the schmutz. Like,
Hey, well, he doesn't want it to go to waste. She doesn't need 2 apples now.
I'll take one of those baguettes too.
Have himself a nice little snack.
Yeah, why not? Why not? Nothing worse than wasted food.
I know though, John, you're the sort of script guy for did you look into the script for this scene in particular, or?
I actually did not. This is one of the only times I haven't delved into it too much. Wait, no, hang on. I do have a little bit. Let me just see.
Wait a minute. There's more space dust on here.
Yes, let me just see. Oh no, but the only bit I picked out is very minor. So go ahead. I imagine it's different.
Well, the big notable change is that they have him speak here.
Oh, okay. Okay, no, maybe it is what I've got.
No, because he, I didn't want to step on your note there. So, but no, they have him come out and say, like, "Afternoon, Miss Beaumont. I hope you didn't buy for 2."
Oh,
wow.
But my big question about that is that, like, would he have sounded like the Joker? Or would he have sounded like Mark Hamill when they did that? Because
I think that's part of the reason they changed it, It's like, because if you make him sound like the Joker, it's weird. It's like, oh, he always sounded like that?
Yeah. Because no one else
would
talks
be
like
kind of
that
funny.
in the show. This big loopy transatlantic accent he's putting on. It really feels like that's part of a mental snap where, again, everything with the Joker is performance. So he's putting on a big show for everyone. And for him to come out and be like, "Hello, Miss Beaumont," to be like, "No."
But then if you give him a normal voice, it's also sort of lame. I don't know. What do you do? What do you do in that situation? And also, I just think it's less intimidating if he speaks. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Oh, yeah, it works so much better. Again, as you said there earlier, not seeing what it did inside, because that makes you think like it's like a bloodbath in there.
Yeah, in my mind, it's like the worst thing you've seen in a gangster film.
Yeah, yeah. And then also
having him toss a joke in is a little too on the nose.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because like in the script as well, like the draft script, as he walks away, not only has he spoken to her, he starts laughing to make you go, it's the Joker, right? Remember, it's the same guy. It's like, I think that's too much. That's too much.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
In case you didn't get the draw on the mouth on the the picture there earlier. But
And again, like, how would he laugh?
Yeah. So you have to make a big point of like, and then Hamill might have been like, well, I want to create a new voice for him then if I'm doing him earlier. And they would be like, it'll just be it's much simpler and it's much more creepy if he just doesn't speak at all.
Yeah.
And then, or maybe he never spoke. That was one of his things.
Yeah, he didn't speak until he became the Joker.
And then now he won't shut up.
Yeah, now he won't shut up.
He used to be Johnny Tightlips.
I ain't saying nothing.
What'd you say to Carl Beaumont? I told him to go suck a lemon.
Go suck an apple.
That's another one of my questions is that like, so does the mob pay for all these this trip out to the Mediterranean coast? If you're there like, oh, we tracked down Carl Beaumont, he's out in the Mediterranean, like, oh, I'll go.
I assume they do, and they must give you some kind of funds for like food and stuff, right?
Per diem and stuff.
I've often gotten lost in the financial details of the Joker in general. Like, where does he go to buy clothes? Where does he get food? Like,
where does he do any of the stuff he does?
Yeah.
It makes no
Right?
sense.
Like he goes out and like you see in this minute, he buys a big freaking thing of bologna for himself, apparently.
Yeah.
yeah, right? Like, where'd he get that?
He just goes
Maybe
down
he
to the
stole it,
store.
But doesn't, like, he and Harley have, like, a little hideout at some point, don't they?
Yeah.
They have a little love nest.
Yeah.
Like, presumably, because Harley's notably not in this. I think they were going to have her in it, and then they just wanted, they're like, nah, just simplify it all down. It's just, just him by himself.
And you have to imagine that he steals everything.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, why would he even ever need to steal money if he steals everything else?
Although it's a weird thing in that, like, this continuity version of the Joker, I think he does spend money because he's always cash strapped. There's several episodes where he's like doing things for the money, like that Batman versus Superman movie, the world's finest meetup. His whole thing is that the Joker goes to Lex Luthor and goes like, if you pay me $1 billion, like I need it, like I'm cash strapped here. If you pay me $1 billion, I'll kill Superman for you. The great interaction, like, why? How could you kill a god? I mean, you can't even kill one mere mortal. The Joker's like, there's nothing mere about that mortal, I can tell you. But yeah, so I think in this verse, it's weird that they do have several instances where, like, yeah, the Joker's always rubbing the pennies together and stuff, like psychotic clown, but also like, well, someone has to buy the bologna around here,
Or he just spends it on really dumb stuff, like candy. I don't know.
Microtransactions.
Yeah.
Candy Crush.
Yeah.
paint that he can use to put on his face on bombs and stuff like that.
Yeah, all that
He's got a
model
Magic
paint.
the Gathering problem.
Yeah. Where he collects like pony figurines or something, and
Or he's really into Warhammer.
yeah.
And then like when he blows up the place, and he's like, "Oh, my stuff is in there. The stuff from the beginning. You know how much some of those figurines was worth."
Not my Space Marines, no.
And Harley's like, "Oh, Puddin', you can't buy another one of those." Like, but it's got a new hat. I want it. But I just like the idea of that too. Of like, oh, so he's out there with his per diem, and it's like after this he goes out, gets the shorts out, and goes down to the beach for a little bit and stuff. And it's like,
Yeah, why not? Relax. You're already there. There's no point rushing back.
just on the plane too, just like like Arnie and was it Twins? Where he's singing yakety yak and stuff on the plane. Is like,
Yes.
the Joker just there in the middle, like, pulls out the papers and the trash. So we get all that, and then Andrea has she's recharged herself to get ready to go in and do some slicing and dicing.
Yeah, she had a little cry, and now she feels better.
And then, of course, we do cut to the man of the minute himself, the Joker. And then all this. What the hell he's up to with his robot is just like, there's no way around it this time. Like, we got to talk
It's
about
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's
Well, he essentially comes onto the robot. He says, "What do you say, hun? Feeling the old electricity tonight?"
Yeah.
So I actually tried to research what would happen if he did sleep with the robot.
You Google, like, can you have sex with a robot?
Just ask Lando. No, I wondered what would happen to his anatomy should it get electrocuted. Well, not electrocuted means you're dead. Should it get electrically shocked? And but the study that I found from Discover magazine was far too scientific. Like it was insanely. I'm sure I'll share it with people. I'm sure someone can fathom this. It's talking about electrical resistivity of the penile shaft being 127.14 omega centimeters at 500 kilohertz, and I'm like, I don't know what any of this means.
Yeah, so did the guy who wrote it, did he try it out on himself, or did he have to go out and be like, okay, I need test subjects? So, because I guess you wouldn't do it on yourself because you're like, well, I do this once, I might not have anything left to come back with.
Yeah. Who wants to volunteer?
Someone get me Adam Savage on the phone.
Yeah.
I believe it was done on some test subjects, yeah. There was one bit out of this giant article that I could vaguely understand, and it said that, where is it? Here we go. The proportion of generated heat on the penis is 4 times as much as on other body parts. Conclusions: potential and subclinical injury to erectile tissue caused by electric current on the penis cannot be underestimated.
Oh,
So if he ends up sleeping with the robot, it may have a disastrous outcome.
Oh boy.
See, you went for the electricity. I was more concerned about like the rusty gears and stuff in there.
Yeah, she is pretty rusty.
Like even I'm almost concerned. Like he puts down that bologna, and she somehow it must be the softest bologna in the universe because that old blunt rusty ass knife cuts through it pretty quickly.
Maybe he replaces the knife every so often.
I do like how very on the nose that is, where he's flirting with her and he puts down a giant sausage.
Right, yeah.
I mean, yeah, that symbolism pops back up later in the scene too.
And then he's like touching her butt and pulls up a piece of her.
Yeah,
He looks like he's about to eat it,
like
and then he
gold
stuffs
member.
it in his jacket. Yeah. What is that?
It's weird because like this scene, he seemed like he's a bit sort of annoyed by this. Because earlier in the movie, when we first introduced to Hazel, he takes a lump of her skin falls off because she's got like robot leprosy, and he has a little like ooh, and he kind of puts it in his breast pocket, like saving that for later. But this one now feels a bit like, oh god, no! Like
it's getting too much.
What part
now.
of her was that? Is what I want to know.
Yeah, I think maybe it was like foam padding on her butt.
It's got to be from the butt, right? I assume.
Yeah, because that's where his hand is.
But you know what?
So,
but
then was his hand up the skirt at that point? If he's got a chunk of her backside, I don't know.
A lot of questions with no answers.
Well, you're all worried about the rust. You know what? She's still got it where it counts. That's what matters. Don't be insulting, people of a advanced age.
She could still shoot that 160 omega watts or whatever it was right up that shaft.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So everything about like it's just too like I wonder like if he ever mentions Hazel to Harley when they reunite at any point. Right? It's like, my robot wife was way better than you.
And he's like, no, she meant nothing to me. It was just a brief fling.
I didn't know too actually. I don't know if that's a deliberate detail, but Harley begins with HA and Hazel begins with HA. So you got ha.
Oh,
I don't know if they did that on purpose, but it's like, well, it's a weird coincidence there.
Well, now they can. If anyone working on the comics is listening, bring Hazel back. Come on.
Yeah.
Where's Hazel?
But yeah, that's wrapping up the minute though. We do have like the Phantasm apparently blows the door open from afar as part of her theatricality and deception. Powerful agents, don't you know? But does anyone else have any notes for minutes 6? Holy moly, that's about like 1 minute at 60. Jesus Christ, we're an hour in.
Yeah, it's crazy. I have nothing though.
No.
No.
But one thing we are doing this season though, guys, is just that because BTAS was such a seminal cartoon from way back when, we are asking the guests what their other favorite cartoons were from back in their childhoods.
Well, I never stopped with the cartoons.
Hey.
So like cartoons is just a medium I've always enjoyed.
Yeah.
So I don't really have cartoons aren't so tied to my childhood. I mean, they were a huge part of it for sure, but I've I've been a lifelong fan of animation. Anything animated, I love to death. But this particular moment in time, like 93, 94, that was like the golden age of Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, I think at this point, there was obviously Batman the Animated Series was huge. The Tick was a big one that I remember every Saturday morning.
See, I never got to see that regularly, but every time I went to one of my friends' houses, he would have it on, and I was always like in awe of this show. I was just like, this looks amazing, but I never caught it at home.
Somehow my older brother, I think because he was out of school at that point, the Tick used to play at a weird time on like BBC Two at like 10 a.m. during the week. So I was going to school. And my brother was like, oh, he'd finished school, so he was coming. And he's like, oh, that Tick cartoon's great. I was like, oh, screw you, man. Like, I can't see it.
Yeah, like Reboot, I remember being a big one.
I remember Reboot.
That's when you're talking about, like, remembering things being way more traumatizing or upsetting. And I remember a thing in Reboot where, again, because, back then you didn't have control. You couldn't just go and look up things on the internet or see what happened. And you like, things weren't bingeable, so it was just like, you had this one episode and this show will be back sometime, eventually. And I remember a finale, in my mind's eye, this was a finale of Reboot where Megabyte wins. The villain is Megabyte. People don't know Reboot. It was set inside a computer, right? So it was, and Megabyte was like the virus that was trying to get in. He looked really cool and stuff. And I remember him taking the main character, Bob, throwing him into a capsule, and the capsule shooting up into like the virus or whatever he had. But and when they bring him back, Bob's been turned into like a blob. And
Bob the Blob?
Bob the Blob. He's just like a sentient blob. And I remember that being like traumatizing. It's like, that was the main character of the show. Like, now he's just a blob. He just moves around. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't talk.
So, because you brought it up, there were episodes of Reboot that I didn't know existed until it started airing on Toonami. Because, I forget what happens. Like, I don't know if it was the Bob Blob thing, but he like goes away.
Yeah.
And like Enzo grows up.
Yeah, there's an anime
there's a time jump.
Yeah.
Like Enzo's an adult, he's got a girlfriend.
He's got like a beard.
Yeah. He's like kind of hot. Like but that never aired on Saturday morning.
It's too hot
stopped.
for TV. That beard was doing a lot for him. So they're like,
it just stopped and then restarted again, much like Sailor Moon. Like that's what I was going to bring up. It's a little early if we're talking about this time period, but that was another one. I never missed an episode. And it got to a pivotal moment, huge cliffhanger, and then it restarted. And I'm like, what? What happened? Later I would find out that Deke only had a certain number of episodes dubbed. Like that's what they were contracted for, and they didn't do anymore because they're like, children are stupid. They won't know.
Yeah, it's fine. I'll just watch it all again.
Yeah, like I knew. I'm like, wait a second.
That's one thing too. That's a seminal thing from people of our generation's childhood too.
Yeah,
is Deke Entertainment and just presenting to children the word DIC at the end of a cartoon, just been like, you think I'm not going to make jokes about this? Like, what are you?
Yeah.
They had to have that kid's voice going, Deke. It's like, it's not what you think it is.
It's Deke. Pronounce it right, children. No, we didn't pronounce it right. We all pronounced it wrong.
That brings me back to my real Ghostbusters phase, which was, I feel like, shaped a lot of people my age, that show. And I think back to being fanatically into the real Ghostbusters and then thinking about myself now being as fanatically into the occult as I am. And I'm like, there's a straight line here.
Yeah.
Well, one of the best things when I found out about Ghostbusters in general, that like when I found out Dan Aykroyd is just into that stuff and always was. Yeah. That's not something he's got into later. It's like, no. The reason that, when they're talking about ghosts, there's all this technical stuff. It's like, oh yeah, because he's put all that in.
That's like, he's on the autism spectrum, isn't he?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And that's one of his special interests. He has like, it's the occult and law enforcement are two of his
And aliens.
And aliens
and
are like
vodka.
his hyperfixation.
And vodka.
Yeah, but like Ghostbusters was a way to sort of tie those two together.
Yeah.
Like, what if there were ghost cops? What would that be like?
Ghost Cops.
Yeah,
I like that. That'd be a good show.
It's like, why didn't they call them the Ghost Cops? that's a much better name.
Ghost cops.
Yeah,
No,
right.
I always liked that their whole kind of gimmick was sort of, they kind of look like pest control people, but for ghosts.
Yeah.
I mean, they are in a way,
Yeah.
right?
So I think they were going to call it Ghost Catchers at one point, right? And then they're
Nah.
like, I think their whole thing of like, well, there already is a thing called Ghostbusters, and they're like, but Ghostbusters is a much better name. Than,
It sounds way cooler.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They probably did cycle through like a lot of things going like Ghost Apprehenders or no Ghostbusters.
I like
is
how
the
they
one.
just took it. They're like, we're taking this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't there
is no
one
longer
where they were
yours.
going to call it Ghost Smashers?
Yeah, well there you go. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
that's just not good. It's not a good name.
It doesn't make it. Busted makes you feel good. It's got to be. It's gotta
Smash
be
it makes me
Busters.
feel good.
And you can have the pun Ghost Bunglers.
Ah,
I always love that in animated shows where they would take the name of the thing and then like make a pun out of it.
Well, that was a big primeval bit in the Filmation Ghostbusters, calling them the Ghost Bunglers.
yeah.
Let's imagine
Love
though
it.
the same people who came up with like, we're just going to steal that name was the same people who came up with the name Deke Entertainment, and they're like, you could just change it to something else. Like, no, we're sticking
Yeah,
with Dick.
right.
Just,
Deke is an acronym for something. I don't.
I'll say, give it a
remember what
Google,
it
see what it
is.
actually is. Deke.
I will.
There's also this weird multiverse thing that happens with the real Ghostbusters, where there's an episode where they consult on a movie about themselves.
Yeah.
and it's hardline alluded that movie is the Columbia Pictures original movie. So the real Ghostbusters are the actual Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
And then the movie is a movie about that. So
Yeah.
it's
That feels like a really petty creative thing. Or going like, we're just going to establish that we are, in fact, the actual Ghostbusters.
yeah.
And then those assholes with the
Yeah.
gorilla in the car are going to be like, excuse me, I think you'll
Yeah,
find.
right.
So DEEC stands for Diffusion Information Communications.
Well, that's boring.
And
That's
it
way
was-
more boring than
It
a
was
Ghostbusters
formed
cartoon.
in France in 1971. So yes, it's an acronym for 3 words.
I did know that it was a French company, and there's a fun little story about Inspector Gadget, which was a DEEC property where it was supposed to be Lupin the Third for an American audience. And there were so many licensing things and so many other things. Like the original Lupin book series had copyrights tied up in the United States that weren't abroad. So it was like, by the time they whittled it all down, they ended up with Inspector Gadget.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah. I'm all noted out though for minute 60. Anyone else have any parting shots for minute 60 or Mask of the Phantasm in general?
Yes, we will head off into the dark, dark night. Would our guests like to promote anything that you've got coming up, or promote shows you've been on? Anything you like?
Well, I have a weekly show on Dueling Genre called Tales from the Short Box. We talk about comics. We talk about comics that came out that week or the week before, and we like to showcase stuff that's out in trade that we really like all-time greats. Like we just finished recording an episode about the Mike Allred Dan Slott run on Silver Surfer, which is one of my all-time favorites. So if you're into that sort of thing, come check us out.
Hey.
And I have nothing to promote. I'm not doing anything currently, but there is always TMNT Minute.
Hey.
It is evergreen. There is many, many episodes of that.
It's more
It's very,
relevant.
very evergreen.
Yeah, it's
It's
more
turtles.
relevant
Yeah.
than ever. Like now. And,
Yeah.
I just got the
Yeah.
the green. I see. I
I mean, that wasn't what I was going for, but I'm glad you made that connection.
But no, yeah, I imagine you're going to get a big uptick in downloads coming any minute
We
now.
still have people in our Facebook group like just discovering it. So
Hey.
it is nice to know that it's out there and people find joy in it.
Excellent. Well, check all of that out, everybody. And as usual, speak to us. Facebook, The Bat Minute Listeners Cave. Twitter, @BatMinute. Instagram, The Bat Minute. Threads, The Bat Minute. I think it's the same. It has to be the same as your Instagram. Yeah, so it's The Bat Minute. And find our network, Sleepy Charlie Media, on Patreon and TeePublic. We will see you again next week with new guests and minute 61 of Bat Minute of the Phantasm.
Next time, like Zoinks! With his villainous existence ready to be rendered null and void, the Joker congratulates a cloaked spookster who's tougher to kill than a cockroach on steroids. The stage is set for the smirking psycho's last laugh, but will anyone gasp as the Phantasm is finally unmasked? We would have got away with it if it weren't for you meddling Batmites on Monday. Same Bat Pod, different Bat Minute.
Must
up, die Fit,